Okay, we are going to look at schedule changes. This is a new training session, so we're just going to look at adding to or removing something from a student's schedule. We still have not gone through any of our scheduling training, which is coming up in February and March, depending if you're elementary, middle school, or high school. But schedule changes are happening now if you are a district that is just finishing up the first semester and going into the second semester. So we are going through the document that is a procedural checklist. It is in the Learning Center. So let's look at that. If I go to my Learning Center and under student information and then my procedural checklists, I have underneath student, I have one that is called schedule changes. So not everything in the schedule change procedural checklist can be done at this time since school has already started. I am kind of going to go out of the order. This is basically a list of different scenarios. We're going to go through most of them. There's a couple of them that we're going to skip around and a couple of them that we are going to completely skip. But what I want to first point out is on page 2, right underneath the table of contents, um, so the functions that you see now are different than if you are working on schedule changes prior to the start of school. So the remove function, so to be able to remove something from the student's schedule, is the only option when dropping a course if the school year has not started. So it's basically like saying, hey, school hasn't started, you're making a change, we're just going to remove it for you. It's like it's completely deleted. It's like it wasn't even there. Once the first day of school starts, which we're already into the second semester, you have the ability to drop, remove, and transfer. So these all become available. If the course term has not started yet, the transfer function is disabled on that course section. So again, working in August is completely different than working in January. So we will see remove now, or it's remove slash delete. When you're working in August, it only shows delete. So we're going to first look at scenario number 1. So let me get into student information. So scenario number 1. So this is adding a class to a student's schedule using the course section assignment page. This is the most common. Okay, so I'm going to get a student in context. So I have several students that I'll use today. But we're going to look at Bash. So we want to look at his full schedule. So I'm going to click on him, get him in context, and then I am going to view and edit his full schedule. If you are not at the building level, okay, if you have access to district level, if you are not at the building level, it will only say view full schedule. So you do have to be at the building level. Um, So I'm going to click on that. So right now he's only scheduled into 2 courses. So when I'm looking at these 2 courses, I want to add something else. So he has something fourth period and ninth period. I want to keep adding to build his schedule. Maybe he's new, or maybe you're just readjusting things. So the big green button, add a course assignment. Then it's going to ask for the course in the course section. So I'm going to look at algebra. And then it does make you pick the section. So if you try to add this without adding the section, you're going to get a warning. So I'm going to click on the 3 little dots. This is our ellipse, and it will pull up all of the course sections that are available. Okay. So if I'm looking at this, I have, section 1, 3, 8, and 99, and it's showing the meeting times over here on the side. So if I want to add in section 1, I can just click on it. And then you can see it populates. So it no longer shows Algebra 1, it shows the course code. And then when is the student starting this? So it automatically defaults to today's date since school has started. If school has not started yet, it will default to the first day of school. So in my case, my first day of school is October 26th. Um, so it would default to that if I was working on this prior to that. But since I'm working on this on the 14th, it automatically defaults to that day. Once I click on save, you will see that it is showing what it wants to add. So it is in orange, I guess you would say. So this means that it is not fully added to the student schedule yet. So I'm seeing it as orange. I want to make sure that it is correct. So I am seeing that it's section 1. It is meeting time period 1. That all looks good. It was manually added. Okay. And then the start date is June 14th. Now, if we look at this, there's two different things I want to show here. But before that, we have one last thing to do is click on the save changes. Because at this point, if I close out of the screen, somebody comes in, my phone rings, whatever, this course has not been added yet. So I want to make sure it's like double saving. So I need to click on the save changes. Now the orange is removed and I can see that it's been added. So hold on, I'm going to pause here for a sec. So when we're looking at our courses. So there's a couple things to look at. I added Algebra 1 today. It is an all year class. So again, the start date is going to be today because that's the date I added. Or if we know the student is enrolling, say on Monday, you can put in Monday's date, and that would be the start date. It would show up in the teacher's grade books. Now, if we look at financial literacy start date is January 19th. That is because that's a second semester class, and our second semester course term does not begin until January 19th. So that's the difference of why that would happen. So again, a lot of us are just started second semester or we're getting into second semester. So if you're adding classes, this might not default to today's date because it can't, because the second semester doesn't officially start until the 19th. But because this is an all year class, it would default to today's date. Now, with that being said, looking at the type, you can see that the course that I just added says manual. That means because I manually did it. We're going to look at a different dwarf and we're going to look at Sneezy. So if I look at Sneezy, he's going to have a mix on his screen and his schedule because you can have courses that are added from the batch scheduler or you can manually add courses. Okay. Ignore that there's no core courses, but you can see here if it's been added from the batch scheduler, it will say batch. If it's something that I'm doing, so everything that we are going to be doing today, it's going to change the type. So it says manual. So whether you're transferring, whether you're dropping, whatever's going to happen, it's going to be a manual thing because the batch scheduler is not doing that. And then any assignments um, that are added directly by this button do not show up on the request page for the student. So let's go back. Oops, there's Bash. So let's go back. So if I look at his requests, so if I want to look at the student's requests, oh, that's supposed to be request, but it should show. So if I look at this, I just added, oops, I'm back to, I want Bash. Okay, so I just added section course 20. That was my algebra 1. You can see here that there's course 20. Okay. But there's not a request that goes along with it. He does have a request. We'll talk more about requests versus direct assignments when we're in the scheduling class. But just make that note. It's at the bottom of scenario one. You won't see anything that's directly added um, when you when it's directly added, it won't be on that request screen. Okay, scenario number two. So let me get a different student in context. We're going to look at Barry. And let me go back to his schedule. Okay. So this is adding a class to the student schedule using the request assignment page. Okay, so this one's a little different. Most people use this because it's very simple. You're viewing the schedule, you're kind of looking through everything, you see the meeting type, and then you're like, oh, well, I need to add something else. But you can do it from the request screen. So if I go into my student screen, I go into my student schedule and then my request assignment screen where I was. Okay. So you can see if there's requests and if they've been fulfilled, but I can directly add an assignment from here. So if you're working on something and say you're, adding the requests and you're like, oh, this kid just needs to take art. I'm just going to put it in. You can just add it. So I'm going to click on add. You'll see it pops up on the right-hand side. So I can start typing in art and it will populate my list over here, or I can click on the ellipse again. So same like it did before, I can click on this and I can see that it's now course 600 and any course sections that are available. So, or if I don't click and select the course section there, I can just click on next and it will populate the course sections below so you can see them listed. So either way is going to show what course sections are available. And this is a singleton, so there's only one. So then I want to assign it to my student. So then I'm going to click assign and it used today's start date. And then I'm going to hit save assignment. And then you can see it populates my 600. So my art one. Okay. This screen's a little bit more difficult to work on because you're only seeing those course codes. You're not seeing the course name like you are on the course assignment screen. Okay. And then again, they're just noting at the bottom that you won't see a corresponding request because we're directly adding that to the students. Okay. So now I'm going to pull up a different student because there are some times when we are trying to add something and we're looking at the student and then there's problems, there issues come along. Um, so whether you do it from this screen or you do it from the course assignment screen, actually I'll switch back to the course assignment screen. It's a little bit more friendly to work in this screen. So we're looking at Marty, and Marty had French first semester. Now he's scheduled to a study hall, and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to sit in a study hall. I want to do something else." So if we click on the little ellipse, I can see, okay, what is available second period, or no, I'm sorry, seventh period. I can hit search. It's going to populate everything that is available seventh period. And you decide, you're like, oh, the student decides he wants to go to weightlifting. Great. So we're going to click on the weightlifting section. Okay. So we know that that's available. Okay. So I'm going to add my course assignment and I'm going to do weightlifting. And we knew it was section 22. We can have it start today. I'm going to leave that day as today, but you'll see that once I hit save, it will automatically update to the start of the second semester. So I'm going to hit save and you'll see you're going to get this warning screen. I guess you'd call it a warning. It's yellow. It's saying, hey, this course section you are trying to use conflicts with a course section already assigned to the student. You may choose to allow this conflict to be saved. So click OK to allow the conflict or click on return, which is not saving, basically canceling. Okay. So in this case, we're going to click OK because he wants weightlifting. He does not want that study hall class. So I'm going to click OK and I'm going to look at his schedule. Remember, it's going to show in orange because it's not completely saved yet. So before you start trying to manipulate everything, hit that save. And then we know for sure it is now saved. Oh, and to remove that. Okay, so now we can see I have my weight training here and I still have that study hall. Also notice that start date changed from today's date and it updated to January 19th. Okay. And then you can see this is a good example because I made a change. It's going to be manual. Everything else was batch scheduled for the student. Okay, I am skipping scenario 3, running the single student scheduler. In that case, you do have to have requests in for a student before you can run that single student scheduler. We will talk about that in the middle school, high school scheduling session. Scenario number 4, you can just cross out, or actually don't cross out, but highlight that last FYI. If the schedules are finalized for the school year in context on the student information screen, which we're in second semester close to, so our schedules are finalized, you are not able to run the study hall wizard. Okay, so that's why we are skipping over that. You would have to manually add study halls. So now we are going to look at, we individually added um, assignments to students individually. Now we want to bulk add a class to multiple students. I know this says 20 students. I don't think I have 20 students. We're just going to assign it to a group of students because maybe you realized, okay, it's second semester and oh my goodness, we have an influx of students that want to take art class because they need to get their fine arts credit. So you have to add a second section. So the second section, you're going to bulk assign these kids to because you know who needs it. So it's in a little bit of different spot. So we're going to go back to our scheduling menu or SIS and scheduling, and then you'll see bulk assign. Okay. We're going to search by students. You can enter student IDs if you want, or if you have an ad hoc membership. Maybe if it's a group of students that are coming back from the Career Center and you have them in an ad hoc membership, you can use that as well. I'm going to search for students and kind of show you how this works. So I kind of made it easy on myself searching these kids, but you can search by this is last name here. You can search by first name if you want to search by a grade level or a homeroom. This is how a lot of elementaries get assigned. We'll talk about that in elementary scheduling in March. But right now, I'm going to look for all of my dwarf students. They need to be added to this. So you can see down here, I have 2 different buttons. So right now I have no students. So I need to create a new list. So I'm going to click create new list. It's going to populate all my students. If all of these students need to be in this class, I'm going to leave them. If, say, for example, maybe Grumpy decides he doesn't want to be like all the others and not take art class, I can delete that record and then he will not be assigned that class. Then I want to add more. Um, the mouse family, they're going to also take art. So now this time I'm not going to click on new list because if I click on new list, it's going to wipe out these students. And I don't want to wipe out these students. I want to add them to this list. So I'm going to click on add. And then you can see here that now it brings over additional students. So now I have my dwarf family and my mouse family. So then the next step is saying, oh, I need to click on the course. So I'm going to go to next. And what course am I adding? I am adding them to art. So my art class, I'm going to click on the little ellipse to find what course section. I'm going to add them into section number 2. And then I'm going to click on the green add section. So now you can see that this is going to be assigned to those students. You can add additional classes here before you actually assign it to the students. So if you're adding art 1 and art 2 or something like that where they're taking, or maybe they're taking biology and the lab, so they're going to be assigned together, you can do that at the same time. We're going to go to next. And then it's going to give me a little summary. It's going to say, okay, I'm going to assign this to 11 students. If there's one course section that they're going to be assigned with the assignment date of today's date of the 14th. Okay. And then I'm going to click on assign. Now, you think it's assigning, but it's saying, hey, there's a conflict that was found. So everybody else was great. It will assign it to them, but these two students, they already have something during that period, second period. So you can see Sneezy has a study hall as well as Mason. So, well, maybe Sneezy decides, yep, I want the art class, so I'm going to allow that conflict. But Mason decides, you know what? Nope, I'm not gonna do it. I want something else. So I'm gonna leave that unchecked. Okay. So then if I want to assign this to all the students, I'm going to click OK. If I click on return, it's going to go back to the previous page. Okay. So I'm going to click on OK. And then it says the assignments were successfully saved. Okay. So let's go look at Sneezy real quick. And then you can see here, oops, get him back in context here. You can see here that here's his art class. Okay. So even though there was a conflict, it still generated that art class. So you can see second period is art 1. And then I still have this study hall that is second period. Okay. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. But let's go look at Mason because he was the one that there was also a conflict and we decided not to allow the conflict. So you can see art was not assigned to him. Okay. He still only has his study hall. Okay. Any questions with adding, whether it's single adding or bulk adding? Okay. I'm going to start jumping around a little bit so that we can kind of do things together in the same screen. So I'm not switching back and forth. So we're going to do scenario 6 and 8 together and then 7 and 9 together. Okay. So it's just so we're staying on the same screen. Okay. So we're going to start looking at dropping, removing, and transferring. So this is happening now. So example, student decides they don't want a study hall and they want something else and so forth. So when we're looking at this, so I'm going to get a different student in context. Okay. So Marty has band. It is an all year class, but he decides, you know what? I don't want to take band anymore. I'm kind of done with it. So he has grades for it, but he just wants to drop the class. Okay, maybe there's a CCP class coming up or something, so he needs to drop it so he can take that. So let's look at a few things for Marty. So I'm going to first look at his marks. So if I look at his grades, I can see ignore all the other classes, but I can see that he's got grades for band. Okay. So if you're dropping, when you drop something, it keeps that content for the student because the student has taken it for a whole semester. So, if you're going to give them partial credit for it, because they've, passed it for a semester. So you don't want to just completely remove it. So now I'm going to go back to the student. Can just Okay. And I want to remove it. So the easiest way is to just click on the little trash can. So I'm going to click on the trash can. And the first one that we're going to talk about is dropping it. Okay. So this is if a student has taken that class, that student showed up for 3 or 4 days, the student got an assignment, the student took it for the first semester. So that student actually participated and showed up to that class. That is what is considered a drop. Okay. So as of today, we are going to drop it, or maybe they're dropping it. The end of the semester is on the 16th. So you're going to drop it on the 16th. Okay. So whatever that might be, you can do it that way. So I'm just going to leave it today's date, and then I am going to click on save. So remember, just like adding a course assignment, it is not completely dropped from the student's schedule yet. It is in orange, meaning that you have to do that final save. So once I click on that, you can see that it shows that it's dropped. Okay. If we go back to that student's mark screen, you can see now that dropped shows in yellow. It still keeps that student's grades listed there. Okay. So now I'm going to skip over to scenario number 8. Oh, and back to scenario number 10, says that it will keep the period attendance for that course section. We don't use period attendance in student information. We only use period attendance in gradebook. All of our districts do. So when it talks about the period attendance, that's not what the teachers are doing in their gradebook side. Again, we don't do the period attendance in the student information side. Okay. So next, we still have Marty in context. We're going to go back to his schedule. And remember, we added, what did we add? Oh, we added weight training earlier. Okay. So, and we showed that it was a conflict. There was a conflict between that in the study hall for second semester. So now we need to get rid of his study hall. So he never actually officially attended that study hall because the weight training class starts on Monday. That's the start of the new 9 weeks. So if I click on the trash can, now you can see that I have the option to drop it or remove/delete. Remember, we're removing now. Prior to the start of school, it deletes it. Okay. So I'm going to click on remove and it states this for you. Okay. That now that schedules are finalized, it's removing. Before schedules are finalized, it's deleting. Okay. But it also deletes the marks for that student. So if the student had marks for study hall, which they wouldn't, and I'll show you this example a little bit later, when we're transferring, it will actually remove those marks from the mark screen. So once I click on save, remember it's still not completely gone yet. So I want to click on save. And then you can see that it puts that lock there and shows that that has been removed from the student's schedule. So if I refresh my screen, so now it just shows that things that are assigned. So I no longer see the dropped course, which was banned. Oh, today hasn't passed. That was my fault. I should have backdated it to yesterday. My fault. It would have came off. And then my removed would still be there with the lock on it. Again, this is today's date. It won't. um, disappear until the end of today. So once today happens, if I come back in tomorrow, I would have to click on the dropped in order to see banned. Okay, that was my fault. I was supposed to predate it. Okay, now I'm going to get a different student in context. We're going to go back to our sneezy dwarf. But instead of doing it from the course section screen, we are going to do it from the student's request screen. So we're going to look at their schedule, go to their requests. Oh, I thought I had them in context. Okay, so again, you can work on this screen. That is completely up to you. I just want you to know that it's both available. So it's kind of the same concept. So remember, we had that overlap. We added the art second period, but he also had the study hall. So there was that conflict. We allowed the conflict. So now we got to delete that study hall. So this is my study hall. I'm going to click on the trash can. Okay. Do I want to drop it or do I want to remove it? Okay. So everything's going to be listed here. I am going to drop this. I'm going to predate this so you can see how it disappears off the screen. Um, and then I'm going to click on save. Okay. And you'll see that it's gone from here. We'll look at his full schedule here in a minute. Okay. And then the same thing, I'm going to look at a different student. She's got a lot of things on her screen, but we want to remove some of them because she's never going to attend. So she got assigned to an extra study hall. We don't want that. She's never going to attend it. So we're going to click on the trash can. This time, instead of saying dropped, we're going to say removed. And if you're not sure what the courses are, I know my 800s are my study halls, but if you click on those, it's going to show you what it is. It's going to give you those details. So I'm going to remove it. I'm going to say save. And then you can see that it's been removed from um, my course sections. Okay. So if we look at her full schedule, okay, you won't see any of those removed classes here. If we go back to Sneezy, because I actually did it right and did the dropped for yesterday, we no longer see it. But if I click on the dropped and hit search, I see that it was dropped on yesterday. Okay. Any questions?
Hey Shelley,
Yes,
I do have a question.
sure.
So on this screen, it doesn't come back with the locked. So like say you accidentally drop that study hall and you're like, crap, I actually want that in there. Can I re-add it?
Yes. I am going to get to that. I
Okay.
added scenario 16 and 17 on my own, and that is my scenario 16 because it happens quite often.
Yeah, there's a lot of times I drop something. I was like, dang it, I actually wanted that.
Yes.
So I will be
Yes.
patient then.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. Nope. Perfect. Because I brought that up or I wrote it down because I know a lot of people have that issue. Same thing with my removed. If I look at my removed and hit search, I should see that study hall with the locked because I can't do anything with it afterwards. Oh, sorry, that was Annie that I removed, not him. Okay, so let's look at, and I know I'm jumping around, but now we're going to skip to scenario 12. So this is where we are bulk dropping or bulk removing students from the same class. Okay. So now I'm going to look at a class and I made a mistake. Okay. Or maybe we realized, you know what, French 3 isn't or French 2 isn't going to go anymore. So when I'm looking at my scheduling menu, I'm going to go to bulk course section management. Okay. So second semester, we decided we're not going to offer French 2 because there's only a few kids in it and the teacher can add in something else. So I'm going to search for that class. So my French 2, okay, I can pick what section. I only have one section of it. I'm going to click on that and then I'm going to hit view and it's going to show me what kids are in there. So you can see I only have those two kids. We decide we're going to get rid of them. They can go into study halls or something else, or maybe they're going to take CCP French or whatever it might be. And if by some chance, maybe you have a list of 10, okay, um, and somebody is not going to be removing it, you can click on the trash can. Okay. The trash can, when you click on the trash can, and I'll do this a little bit later when we're transferring, but if you click on the trash can, then it won't remove them. But since I only have two kids, I want to make sure that we're removing both of them. So I'm going to click on next. So it's going to say, what do I want to do with this? And this is scenario 12 and scenario 13. I'll go through it again real quick, but we're going to look at dropping it. So if I drop this class, okay, so it's going to drop it as of today. So, or maybe I want to drop it, you know, they took it first semester, but we're not going to, keep it going through second semester. So we're going to drop it right at the end of the 9 weeks. So that might be the 16th, or maybe the end of your 9 weeks was on the 9th. So you're going to drop it on the 9th. So you can pick which day you need. I'm just going to leave it at the default of today's date. I'm going to click on next. It's going to view any conflicts if there were any, which there weren't. So it skips right over that. And then I'm going to hit submit. So the drop was successful. So I believe I still have Sneezy in context. So if we look at his schedule, okay, we should no longer see French, okay, at the end of today. So it's been dropped. Okay. So I'm going to go through that again, but this time I'm going to remove it. So I am looking at my bulk course section management. And remember at the beginning, we bulk added art class to the dwarf family and the mouse family. Well, the mouse family should not have been included in that. So they have not attended art. They will not be attending art. So I need to completely remove them. So I'm going to type in art one, and I believe it was section 2. So I'm going to click on my section. And you don't, if you know what section it is, you do not have to click on this. You can type it in. So I'm going to click on view and here are all my students. Okay. So you're going to click. So this is all the students that are in the class. So what you're going to do is anybody that you do not want removed from the course section, you're going to click on the trash can next to them. So Barry's going to stay in there, Bash is staying in there, et cetera, et cetera. So I did this so it's nice and quick and in order, because if not, your screen does jump a little bit. So all the mouse family, they're gone. So I'm going to hit next and they're not supposed to be in there. So I completely want to remove them. Okay. So remember if there were marks or assignments or anything, or I shouldn't say assignments, but if there were marks in the student marks screen, all of that gets deleted when you do a remove. That's why you only want to do a remove if that student never attended that class. So then I'm going to hit next. It's going to say I'm going to remove it from these 4 kids and I'm going to hit submit. And it was successful. Okay. So now if I look at any of the mouse family, we'll look at Minnie. Look at her full schedule and we should not see anything. If I click on the removed, I would see that art class. So you can remove one by one, you can remove by bulk if you need to. Okay. Now back to scenario 10. Okay. So now I'm going to jump in gradebook a little bit so you guys can see the gradebook side. And when your teachers are coming to you and saying, why do I see this? Or why did this happen? Um, then you know what's going on. Okay. So I'm going to try to keep it as a separate tab. Sometimes it logs me out. So we'll see if it'll, oops, I just switched to. We'll see if I can keep them
Shelly, if
both
you do an
open.
incognito window, it'll let you do both tabs at the same time.
Yeah, I know, but then I'm switched. Yeah, I know. I'm not signed into the incognito. I'm just going to try it this way. I figured a short time we should be good. Okay. So now we are going to do transferring a student from one course to another. So, oops, and I took my teacher out of context. Let me get my teacher in context here. Okay. So you can see that Miss Goslow has two different algebra classes. So she has six and she has section four. So if we look here, Leaf here is going to be changing. He, scheduling conflict, whatever, he needs something second semester. So second semester, he is moving to section four. Okay. So if we look at section four, he is currently not in there. Okay. Let's go back to six. And if I look at my report card screen for Leaf, you can see he has grades. Okay. If I put Leaf in context here and look at his student marks, you can see his grades are there. Okay. So when we're transferring, if you're doing a drop, it will transfer these final marks. Okay. I forgot to show you something here. Um, did I do it on this student? Oh, I don't think I did it on this student. Let me go back here real quick. I think I did it on another student. Yeah. Okay, I did. Let me add an assignment real quick for this student. No, sorry. I had this. There's something later that I'll show you that it's set up, but I want to show you in here. Section six. Okay. So, because there's two things when you're transferring. Some will work. We'll just call this transfer. And then there's some stuff that the teacher has to do on their side. And we need to do this during, oh, I don't know why I did that. Okay. So the student has an assignment. Okay. So it's there. Okay. Assignments don't go over to student information at all. They stay in the teacher's grade book. Okay. So now let's go back to our student information because we need to switch him from section six. We're going to switch him to section four. So I'm going to look at his full schedule. And you can do this from this screen or the request assignment screen. I'm just going to do one. I'm just going to stay here because it's easier with the course names and so forth. So here is his algebra section six. Okay, so I'm going to click on the trash can. So we need to get rid of this one. I don't want to say remove. We want to get rid of this one and transfer him to the other one. So make note that when you are transferring, you have to transfer to something that's equivalent. So it needs to be an all year class. So you can transfer them from one all year class to another all year class or a second semester to a second semester. Okay. Um, so I'm going to transfer. Where am I transferring them to? I'm transferring them to another algebra. So algebra two, and then I can pick my section. Okay, so if I have all my sections, it shows their meeting times, and I know he needs to go to period four. Okay. And then in the transfer, okay, in the transfer, it asks if you want to drop or remove. Remember, removing is going to delete grades. Okay, so just be aware of that. If I do a remove, it will remove any marks. Okay, so I'm going to click on the drop and I'm going to hit save. Okay, so it's saying there's a conflict. I know he's got a study hall, I think, or something, but I'm going to click OK. Okay, and it's showing that we're switching from sixth period to fourth period. This is going to be dropped. This is going to be assigned. So I'm going to hit save. Now, if we go into his student marks here in this screen, if I look at his student marks here, whatever was in section 6 is now in section 4. And I can see that this has been dropped. But because I did the transfer, it takes those marks and moves them to the correct section. So now let's go to the teacher screen. Okay, so if I look at my dashboard for the student, we can now see as soon as you hit that save button, the teacher is automatically going to see this W. So it populates that W in their grade book. It used to wait overnight. Now it happens immediately. Okay. So if I look at my grid, so the teacher put in an assignment for the student, that still stays there. So the assignment is still there showing that he's got an A minus. If I go to my dashboard and look at his report card screen, notice those marks are now gone. Okay, so they disappeared. That is because when I look at section 4 now and I look at leaf, he now has those marks there. So because it transferred them on the cis side, that populates the final mark or the grading period mark in gradebook. But what it doesn't do for the teacher, and what the teacher sometimes likes to do is if we look at that gradebook grid, it was grading period 2, there's no assignment for leaf. So when you do the transfer, it transfers the marks that have come over into gradebook. Kendall, you have some elementary. Um,
Yes.
Elementary marks do not go into Dazzle until I think you're fourth grade or third grade. Then
Yes.
they start going into Dazzle, so you can transfer those. Your K1 and 2, you would not be able, if you did a transfer, there's no marks in gradebook or in student information to transfer.
Okay.
Okay. So the elementary is a little bit different because not all of the final or the grading period marks go into Dazzle. My middle school, high school, any those all go into Dazzle. So then why I want to say this is because then a teacher would need to transfer here, and that can transfer assignments if they want the assignments in the correct section. Completely different training, but if they're asking you, well, the assignments aren't there, the assignments are still with the original course assignment section. Okay, so they by you dropping it does not delete the assignments that the teacher had in their grade book. It might wipe out that the grades on the report card screen, but it will not wipe out the grades on any individual assignment the teacher had. Okay.
Is there a scenario that talks transferring from one teacher to another teacher?
Um, it would be the same both ways, as long as it's a matching course. So it has to have the same course term, same course type, etc. You can transfer it. So if you have let's see, I think it's my phys ed class. Hold on, let me look. Um, And let me search. I think I have multiple teachers here. Yeah. So I have multiple teachers here. So I can transfer from section one to section two to section five. And it doesn't matter because it could go to Sherry, it could go to Albert, or it can go to Doug. It's because it's the same course term that allows you to be able to transfer. I would not be able to transfer from Albert here to Doug here because that's a different course term. Does that make sense?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure the marks go because like we'll have situations where we have like one English teacher has a student and then like we have a conflict and we need to move them like the
Yes.
student needed added to math or something like that. And so then we have to transfer them from one English teacher to another English teacher. And I didn't know if the grades
Is
just the mark
is
screens actually went.
as long as the marks were in student information, they will transfer. If you're mid 9 weeks, so say for example, I know a lot of districts are finishing up Friday, so they might not have marks yet in on the report card entry screen. So if the teacher has not submitted the grades to go into student information, there's no grade to transfer, so it will not work. So the grade has to be submitted or it has to be on that marks screen for the student. What student do I have in context here?
If they've submitted interims and we want to average like the interims with the rest of, so we say we move them an interim point and the first 9 weeks interim has been put in and we transfer them the next day to the teacher, that interim marks will go with them and then we can average the interims with the rest of the quarter, correct?
It should, yes.
Okay.
It should, yeah. So if we're moving them, if there was an interim mark, and I know I have the same teacher, it should automatically do that. Now, again, the assignments are not transferring in the teacher's grade book, but these marks should populate in the grade book. So when they're doing their check mark equals, that it'll calculate. A lot of times the teachers wind up transferring the assignments from into their class so they have what grades they originally got so they know and they see the percentage and so forth, because if I just see a B plus, I don't know what percentage they actually got. Were they closer to an A minus, or were they closer to a B? Like, I
So
don't know that with just transferring the mark.
so we are percents, so they at least would see that if they transferred from one class to the other.
Yes, yeah, because you see percentages here. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, I'm not, scenario 11 is just removing that. So it's the same concept as transferring and dropping, but you would be removing it. So that would only be if that student, didn't take that class, you know, before semester two even started, you need to remove them from second period phys ed and put them in ninth period or vice versa, but they never attended. So that would be your remove. Okay. Okay. The other one, I'm not sure if this would ever be used, but I'm going to go over it. So 14 and 15 are bulk transferring students. So when you have multiple students. And again, I think the documentation is, it's funny because it's like they have 20 or they have five. It just should say multiple students. So it doesn't have to be 9 students. Okay. So in this case, you accidentally bulk assigned a group of kids to first period, and you're like, oops, they were supposed to be in second period. Um, so with that being said, you can transfer them from one to the other. Okay. So we're going to go back into our scheduling, the bulk course section management. We were there earlier. Okay. So now we are going to do a transfer. So I accidentally put the students in the wrong government class. So I put everybody in section one. So I have two sections. I put everybody in section one, and they actually were supposed to be in section two. Okay. So I'm going to view my students. So all of these students are supposed to be in section two. Corey is still, he is supposed to be my only one in section one. So I'm going to delete him because I don't want him to be transferred. Okay. Next is choosing the action. Just like before, I can drop or remove, but I can transfer. And then what course am I transferring it to? And again, it's got to be equal. So it's got to have the same course term, the same course type, etc. So I'm switching it from section one to section two. Okay. And then the same concept. You can drop it or you can remove it. So if you did it by mistake and they never attended section one, you can say remove. If they started that first day or whatever, you can hit drop. So depending on your scenario, so either 14 is dropping it or 15 is completely removing it. So if they have no marks, didn't go, you can remove. I'm just going to leave it as dropped. Okay. What the stop date is. So you can pick today's date if it's going to be on Friday, if it's going to be Monday, whatever. If you're like, oh, I totally messed this up, but the stop date's going to be today. We'll do yes. Yeah, we'll do today. I'm going to hit next. Okay. It'll show any conflicts if there are any, and there isn't. So I'm going to click on next. And it's going to say, okay, I'm going to submit this. And then the transfer was successful. Okay. So if I look at Peter Pan and look at his schedule, okay, you should see one was dropped and one was assigned. Notice it will automatically pick the next start date for the transfer. It cannot be the same date. So if you accidentally drop something, you start it the next day. Okay, so it'll just automatically come back. Okay, so that's where we're going to get into my new scenario, scenario 16. Okay, so scenario 16, I made up on my own based on help tickets. And seems like it's a question. Is dropping a course section by mistake? What do we do? Okay, so if we're looking here at um, algebra 2, section 6. So my teacher comes to me and says, I noticed that Polly has a W next to their name. Why is she withdrawn from my class? She's still coming every day. You're like, well, I don't know. Let's check this out. So anything that has been done for Polly will remain. Okay, so if there's any assignments, things like that, grades will stay in there. Teachers can keep working, still adding assignments. Um, they can submit grades. Um, so what I want to do is look at Polly. So let's look at her. So I'm going to look at her drop classes. And I could say, oh, well, I'm not sure why this was dropped a long time ago, but we need to add it back. The teacher, she's been in class the whole entire time, or maybe you did it yesterday, either one. So now what I want to do is add, there's no way to remove this date. It doesn't allow you to remove the date. You just have to add it back in. So I'm going to add it back in with the start date of the 17th or whatever the next school day is. Okay. So I'm going to add that course assignment. It's Algebra 2, Section 6, with the start date of the 17th. I'm going to hit save. Okay. Now notice it's being added. I still need to finalize that. It starts on the 17th. If I go back to my teacher's grade book, look at her dashboard, the W is now gone. So it's that quick if you see something like that. So if you accidentally drop it today, just start it tomorrow and it will come back. Okay. Now scenario 17 I made up as well. Okay. This is something that you don't want to do by mistake, but this is removing a course assignment section by mistake. Okay. So I'm going to look at my English 9. We have Barry in here. Barry has an assignment. He's got a grade. Um, Actually, I think I put it in first 9 weeks. So here's his assignment. Okay. He's got grades and the report card screen. So if we look at his grades here, oh, well, we're going to fake them. I thought I had them set. Okay. So we have them here. Okay. So everything's good. Let's go back to student information. Okay. He's still in his English. We're going to look at his marks. His marks are still here. Okay. But now I'm working with this student and um, I was supposed to be dropping the art class. He decided he wasn't going to take art. So we're going to drop it. He never attended. It's supposed to start second semester, but I accidentally click on the English class and I hit remove. Because you're like, well, you're not paying attention. Somebody comes in your office. You're like, I did everything right. You didn't notice that it was English and not art. I'm removing it. I click on save. Notice removing says it deletes the marks. So if I click on save, okay, you're kind of talking, not kind of paying attention, thinking you're doing what you're supposed to. Notice it defaults to the first day of school because it's saying, hey, a remove is like the student should have never been there. So once I click save, okay, it's removed. If we go back to his screen, go to his mark screen, notice the whole class is gone, marks and everything. Okay. Now let's go back to the teacher and look at the teacher. The teacher is now going to see that Barry was withdrawn. If I go to my gradebook grid and my assignments, they will still be there. The assignments will still average. But when I go to my report card screen as the teacher, those marks disappear as well because of that remove. Okay. So if that happens, so I come back to the student, I go to his schedule and I'm like, oh no, he really needs that English class. I need to add it back. Okay. So I'm going to add my course assignment. English was English 9, section 2. Okay. With the start date, I need to start it back at the beginning of school and hit save. Okay. It's saying, hey, I'm going to reassign this. Click on save. So it's reassigned. Teacher comes back in on their dashboard. The W is withdrawn, it's removed. The student still has their assignments are still listed, but the teacher will then have to go back to the report card screen and do the check mark equals to populate that grade again. And then once they hit save, it will come over back to their mark screen and it's back. Okay. So if you do accidentally remove, the teacher will have to resubmit those with the check mark equals. It will never delete the actual assignments the teacher makes out of their grade book. Any questions?
Shelley, where can we find the step by step for 16 and 17?
I just made them up off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'll try to get something typed up.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.